Manifestation without active shadow work is a one-way ticket to crash and burn your own life. Focusing on aspects of things like success, finances, materialism without putting equal and opposite work into who you are as a person, privately, authentically, not in a performative way, not based on who you are in front of one person or a singular other person or one community of people, but who you are as a person, what you stand for, what you actively do, the things you actively defend, work against, your behavior, what those things are in alignment with, the way you treat yourself, how happy you are. Right? If you're not doing the active balancing work in that, you are doing nothing except inviting destructions into the things that you were pretending to build, because those manifestations are not set on foundations. Welcome to part 2 of my 10-day educational video series on actual manifestation, the practical applications in your own personal path, and the inherent shadow work that is absolutely necessary for the intrinsic balance of manifestation. And in this second video, that is exactly what we are talking about, is the shadow work balance and what happens if you do not balance out your manifestations actively with shadow work. Also, can we take a moment for the "That's So Raven" and not pretend that it's any kind of shock that like Raven Baxter was my bitch growing up, but I just got this t-shirt and I'm like, yeah. What I'm doing with this video is I'm removing competition mindset, competition period, from manifestation, because it doesn't belong there. And again, manifestation isn't a skill that you can develop. It's not something you can be better or worse at than the person next to you, scientifically, right? If you were not 100,000,000% like perfect at manifestation, you would not have a reality, right? Manifestation is a natural occurrence of existence. Manifestation is a natural side effect of you living, breathing, and being a consciously aware human being. There is no way scientifically to be better or worse at it than the next person. It's how your consciousness experiences life. Do some people manifest differently than others? Yes. If you need to go back to part 1, right, where we go over the different constructs of how people manifest, you absolutely can. But to believe from any category that you are better than someone else at manifestation is a gross mindset to bring in. I think it's dogmatic. I think it's religious trauma. And I think that it's really funny that it mostly is spread by people of my skin tone in the spiritual fields. But if you believe that the gifts that life has given you, because again, going back to spiritual principles, spiritual law, nothing belongs to you. There are gifts that the universe has given you to see what you will do with them, right? So to utilize those gifts in the specific timings that life has given them to you and compare yourself in a boastful way to the people around you is wrong. It is, and when I say that manifestation, you can't be better at it than other people, people get upset. They act like I'm taking something from them, because what I'm doing is I'm pointing out the shadow work that they are not actively doing in order to balance out their own manifestations. If you think in any way that anything that life has given you or you have achieved in life makes you any better at manifestation or anything else than another person, you need to go to a journal. You need to work on that, because it will blow up in your face, I promise. The reason that I'm giving you guys these kind of like categories is not to separate yourself further. It's to find a place where you can stop comparing yourself, where you can liberate yourself from the competition that has been so deeply placed in the spiritual world around manifestation, and stop seeing yourself comparatively to other people. Because as much as people want to talk about community and collective spells and collective energy, there's no way that those people are creating those things so long as they're attached to these mindsets, right? Because if you think of your soul as a machine that's supposed to be creating t-shirts, and the person next to you, their soul is supposed to be creating dresses, and you've spent your whole life comparing yourself to the people who are making dresses, no matter how perfect your t-shirts are, you're always going to think they're shitty, because they're not dresses. And the second that you begin to understand that you're making something different, and you don't need to compare yourself to souls that are making dresses, you need to compare yourself to other souls. You need to take advisement from other souls who are making t-shirts, right? And once you begin to understand where you belong, you begin to understand that you're actually really good at creating and manifesting exactly what you're supposed to be creating and manifesting. The reason you feel like a failure is because the world around you is actively trying to compare you to the person next to you. And that's just not how life functions. That's not how manifestation functions. We are looking at energy patterns in one another. And instead of appreciating the beauty of difference, of differentiation in humanity, we are actively destroying each other. We are actively trying to put ourselves in competition by calling ourselves better or worse at manifestation. It's something that comes so naturally to our lives. Every person has manifested exactly what they are meant to manifest. I can promise you that. So if in any way you feel comparison to the person next to you, understand what a harmful mindset that is, how harmful that is not only to you, but to every other person in these fields, every other person who is actively working towards their own life goals. And I think that by categorizing ourselves and understanding which category we belong to, we can start having more open and clear communication about how those energies and those values work within our own lives, and also see the inherent worth and value in having that differentiation. Does that make sense? That's why we're moving the competition out of manifestation. So what I want to do in this video is I really want to change your perspective on what manifestation truly is, right? Because again, it's not a skill. It's something that is 100% complete. You have done it. And stop telling me that you're trying to build a mirror. You already have one. The manifestation is your mirror. It is your life. Your life is a perfect reflection of exactly what you are meant to learn and know and reflect on, okay? And every piece of your life symbolizes something in your internal world. It symbolizes an emotion, a system, an inherent belief, right? A thought pattern. Everything in your life perfectly reflects something inside of you or some lesson that you need to learn, okay? So what you are seeking, and you're going to find three ways. What you are seeking here is alignment, right? What does like perfectly aligned manifestation look like? It looks like perfect satisfaction in life. It looks like your career, your relationships, your friendships, everything you are as a person, your house, perfect. Not too big, not too small, not too much, not too little. Your car is exactly what you need and desire at this point in your life, right? Personal satisfaction in every facet. You're feeling no resistance. A lot of us aren't meant to achieve that until later in life. A lot of us aren't meant to achieve that until the end of our lives, right? But perfectly aligned manifestation looks like satisfaction. It looks like genuine happiness and contentment, okay? So like anytime that you're looking at your life and you feel any form of any type of resistance internally, what you are finding there and what you are seeking within that answer is how does this directly correlate to some facet of shadow work or alchemy within my own life? That is what you are looking for, is the cohesive line to what that piece of your life directly represents inside of you, and then asking yourself if it is in alignment for you, right? A lot of us, when we try to manifest these big things that are just far above us, we face a lot of struggle, right? We'll face a lot of roughness. Just every problem possible can come up with this manifestation. Maybe this manifestation doesn't come to fruition at all, right? And when these things happen, it is a good sign that whatever that you are seeking or whatever you're manifesting, it's not in alignment with who you are, and it's going to have long-term harmful effects. So it's really important when we feel this resistance in our lives, whether it be in our relationships or in a specific friendship or in our career, that we look at what it's tied to in our alchemy. And this could be you as a person need to change, right? This is offering resistance because you need to evolve, you need to develop. It could also be you need to walk away from this thing, you need to separate from this cohesive energy. For whatever reason, it's creating a disconnect, right? Facing that resistance, that is how you work with manifestation, because the manifestation is already complete. It's a mirror. Looking at that mirror and reflecting on that mirror is how you achieve higher levels of whatever the change is that you desire to occur. Is this making sense? One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from living in a Buddhist monastery, okay, was a monk who told me, rough translation, to not take advisement from people who are successful, but to take advisement from people who are content and satisfied. And I have never forgotten that, okay? Because when you feel perfectly aligned within your life, that is when you are coming from a place of true manifestation, of true alignment, of true alchemical work, where you have achieved these levels of understanding within yourself, where you just feel in flow, where your brain and your soul and your energy and your mind and your body are just aligned and just feel comfortable, and you're achieving that healing, you're sharing that healing consistently, you're creating community between places that you never thought you could build community, right? That is an aspect of manifestation that we should all be working towards, right? And I think that we should really keep this in mind. And I think that these facets of energy flow and understanding within humanness are so important to really develop a personal relationship, not only with yourself, but also with the collective world, right? Because, like, when you're a person who's saving up for a car, you know what I'm saying? You're going to get judged by people who have one when you don't, even if they picked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get theirs, right? And when we talked about in our last video, you know, this aspect of like people being on different payment plans, like, don't judge yourself because of the way that your soul chose to live this life. I promise they didn't make a mistake. I promise you. And when we liberate ourselves from this construct that things are supposed to be different because they're different for someone else, we really free ourselves of this just kind of like self-hatred or like self-judgment that inherently lives inside of us because other people have convinced us that we're doing something wrong or that we're bad at something. And when the truth of the reality is that we're working on different things, we're aiming for something completely different, that we care far more about who we are as a person than we care about the active reflection of our lives at this point. Do you get what I'm saying? I really want you to take a step back and ask yourself what your goals are for your life, right? And if those goals are really aligned with things like cars and houses and money. Because I promise you that's not what your soul came here to obtain. I promise. And when we sit in these facets, I think that I get really tired of hearing people claim on this app to be such great manifestors because of material objects. Materialism has never been a part of spirituality or witchcraft ever. Never, not once, has it ever been a sign of a good spiritualist. Ever. On the contrary, some of the worst people on this planet, most of the worst people on this planet, rich as fuck, billionaires, right? I don't give a fuck how much money you have obtained through witchcraft or otherwise. How many lives have you changed this week? I want to know, how many different people have you made think in progressive ways? How many people have you come together with and actively set with? How many people have you actively changed their lives? How many people have you taught? How many people have you testified to? How many people have you changed their lives through who your authenticity is? That is the sign of a good manifestor. That is the sign of a good spiritualist. And I think I'm really tired of the way that we have allowed spiritual formats to be shaped in these ways. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's really time that we start reshaping the way that we see and perceive the spiritual world and ourselves within it. You can call me a bitch for saying these things if you want to, but am I a bitch? Or am I pointing out that it is extremely strange that a bunch of privileged, primarily my skin tone people have gotten into the spiritual fields to do nothing except proclaim that the material objects that they have make them inherently better than people who have generations and ancestries of multiple years of oppression, resistance, fighting back strength, like resilience, genuinely are those people who have come from, in this genuine lifetime, poverty, complete trauma, childhood abuses, right? And they come into these fields to claim that they're inherently better at something than all of those people. Right? Are we looking at this correctly? Or no, I'm just being a bitch. Let me know which one. I just really want you guys to start seeing these harmful mindsets, specifically revolving around manifestation, as the ego traps that they are. Because that's all that they are. And the people who administrate these types of concepts want you to fall into them. Especially if you feel lower than they are. Right? Especially if you now begin to believe that you are a bad manifester. Right? It keeps you intrinsically below where they are as a person. And do not inherently allow that. Do not allow your material value in the physical world to tell you your internal value that you are as a person. Ever. I promise you that your life and your manifestations are working in exactly the way that they are meant to. And the more that you begin to reflect on who you are internally, the more you're going to understand the reason for each of those things within your personal life. Okay? I love you guys, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for part 3. Oh, I forgot to tell you though, part 3 of our manifestation is on humility and remaining humble in the spiritual fields. How important it is to stay grounded in who you actually are as a person and your own personal authenticity. So can't wait to see you guys for that one. I'm sure I'll have a thing or two to say.